Hi, and thanks for joining us on Live with Squacky. I'm Val Kelly, voice actor, owner, president, CEO, and executive producer of Mid-Atlantic Voiceover LLC. I'm so excited about our special guest today. We have Herb Moore from Disney Television Animation. He's been in the industry for over 20 years, and he's currently the animation timing director for Star vs. the Forces of Evil. So thanks for joining us today, Herb.
Good morning, Val. Thank you. I'm really looking forward to this.
Well, so are we. I'm so excited to share with everyone your story. So let's start by having you tell us a little bit about your background and how and why you got started out in the animation industry.
Well, it was kind of a crazy thing for me, Val, because I was a little country boy in Kentucky whose dad was an artist. And for some reason, I thought I could be an artist too, even though I don't think as a young lad I really had the talent for it per se. It had to be cultured and developed. So eventually I decided I was going to get into TV animation, and how that happened really had to be more of a brain fart than anything else. But after I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, I ended up in LA having really no idea how the business ran and operated. But I got my first start at Klasky Csupo at the end of the third season of The Simpsons, and knew right away that I was destined to stay in that business. I knew I made the right move and that I was going to love it. And 26 or 7 years later, I still get excited to go to work every day. I love what I do.
That's amazing. I mean, starting out on The Simpsons, like, who does that? That's so crazy. That's so great. You know, I think as a voice actor, anybody would be thrilled to start out at that level. So that's really, it says a lot about your talent in the industry to be able to start out at on such a great show. So that's amazing. So what has it been like working with all the major Hollywood studios over the years?
Well, I guess it's easy to say that it's been phenomenal, but it really has been. When I first got started at Klasky Csupo, we were allowed to sit in on a lot of the voiceover sessions, and it really gave you an idea as an artist how the development of the character, both from line work that we do and the voice work that the actors do, really has to marry together well for the cartoon to not only be successful, but also to kind of make sense, if you will. You want characters to be developed so that they're serious or sad or funny or happy or young or old or whatever. Those are just obviously basic. But Klasky allowed us to sit in, and so you could really get a feel for this dynamic personality that was being developed or continued being developed through the individual characters. When I first started on The Simpsons, I did background design and cleanup work. And then later, when I was on Rugrats and Our Real Monsters and Duckman, then we were encouraged to sit on these sessions so that we could help design things that were more in tune with what the director was trying to get from the voice talent. And it was just a great experience. Now, as I progressed to work for the bigger studios, they were a little bit more, let's say, protective of their voice talent. So at times we were invited to go and see the sessions, which was still great. It not only gave you some other studio's perspective, but the voice talent typically was always so accommodating to know that they had a little audience listening to them who also worked on the artwork for the show. And it just stokes your fire to be able to go back to your desk and say, oh, I just heard so-and-so do the voice of such and such. And man, you just have to sketch like crazy because it just builds up that creative energy and drive. Fantastic experience. And like I say, it still is, because today, as the industry has grown, the voiceover talent has now blossomed into anywhere from little children to older people to professional actors to unknowns. And it's really just as exciting to see, if not more so, the development of how animation and animated products comes out, and how the voice itself is what really just pounds home the idea of what they're trying to get across, be it humor or selling something or fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's so cool to be able to sit on sessions like that, to hear and, you know, possibly give your input at times on what's happening for the show.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. That was going to be one of my questions. Do you ever get to sit on voiceover recording sessions? And it sounds like over the years that you have, do you get to still do that at Disney sometimes where you're listening in on recording sessions?
I did early on with Phineas and Ferb. There were two things that happened on Phineas and Ferb, which were really, really probably the first time it's ever happened to me and the only time it's ever happened. We were encouraged occasionally to go to the recording sessions and hear usually specific voices when somebody was being recorded. But also because the creators, Dan Povenmire and Swampy Marsh, did voices for the show, then a lot of what they did was scratch dialogue while we were putting together the animatics. And that doesn't sound nearly as fun and magnificent as it was, because a lot of times these jokes would kind of get developed on the spot. And it was so cool to see Dan and Swampy sit in together and kind of play off each other of something that was like totally unscripted, but you knew the direction you were going to go. So the spontaneity, and it was, the thing was, the spontaneity drove us crazy because we would bust out laughing. And you can't have us laugh in the background while they're doing these scratch tracks. But we couldn't help ourselves. It was just so amazingly funny. So yeah, the fun thing on Phineas and Ferb was both going to the studio and then sitting in on these animatic sessions and hearing punch up jokes and so forth. On Star, it's a little different. That's done off property. And so I haven't had the opportunity to go to the voiceover sessions, which is unfortunate because I love the characters.
Yeah, the characters on Star are amazing. I love that show. I watch it as much as I can. It's so exciting. And every time I watch the credits just to make sure I see your name and like give you the credit of watching all the credits at the end. That's so cool. I can't imagine what it was like to work with, Dan Povenmire and Swampy Marsh on Phineas and Ferb. I'm such a huge fan of that show and of their work, and that's just it would be hard to top that, in your career,
Yeah.
because you were really fortunate to be able to work with such awesomely talented people that I continue to be a fan of as a voice actor. It was one of my goals, even though it's too late now that it's not on anymore, but I was like, I'm gonna be on Phineas and Ferb like someday, and so I wish it had kept going. Maybe they'll have to redo it someday so I can be on there.
That's right. That would be great.
Yeah. So how do you find a balance between family and work? Because I know you're very busy with your job all of the time.
And you and I have talked about this before. It's a great topic. I have a real passion and love for what I do, obviously. And I have a real love and passion for my family, of course. And so it ends up being, and we kind of joke within my family that I have a mistress, and my mistress is my work. And then at work, we joke about how I have a mistress, and my mistress is my family, because I can't, nor do I want to, give up one for the other. I really want my cake and eat it too. I have a great family and a great career. So there is stress in that I want to work hard, do a good job, but I also love what I do. So I want to do it because I find enjoyment out of it. And then the same can be said for my family. I love my family. I want to enjoy time with them. I want to make great memories. So I don't want anything to infringe on that. But I think you kind of find a way to make it work. And I think a lot of that is just, instead of getting 8 hours sleep, you get 4 or 5. And sometimes you have to say no to one or the other. And then other times you have to say no on the other end and go, oh, well, I'm not going to get as much work done, but I'm going to have a blast with my wife and kids. It is probably one of the most challenging things I've faced in the 27 years that I've been in this business is that juggling, because it never changes. When there's work, you want to spend time with family, and when your family wants to go do stuff, there's work that you have to take into consideration. But if you love both of what you have, you find a way. It's amazing, and it's been great.
Yeah, I think having a family that kind of makes the effort to understand what you do, even if they're not in the industry, is also probably helpful, to try to make that balance work, because I definitely find it challenging with all the stuff I have going on, teaching French, doing voiceover, running a company, and then trying to manage 2 kids, a husband, a house, a dog, and like it's crazy. But I definitely that's definitely been something that I've been working on, is trying to find the balance in my life, because I do think that there are times, especially with the conference coming up and things like that, that I don't get a lot of sleep. Sometimes I'm just like, well, if I get 4 hours of sleep, that's great. I just need enough to be able to get done what I have to do. But yeah, I definitely think that you do have to just try to make it work, because if you're so passionate about something, you don't want to give up either thing, and then you don't have a choice but to find a balance. So yeah, that's really cool.
Right.
What are some industry challenges that you've faced over the years, and how have you learned from them?
I was thinking earlier about, since I'm coming up towards the end of my session with Star, you are constantly looking for your next job, if you will, kind of looking out over the horizon to kind of see what's going on. And yet at the same time, you want to do a great job at where you're at, because you can burn a bridge real easy if you get too worried about the next paycheck versus what you're doing right now. And I think that's true of just about anything that revolves around both live action and the animation part of the industry. I think for voice talent, it might even be scarier, because you're in for, especially if it's commercial work, you're brought in to do a session, you do it, they say great, you get a paycheck, and now it's like, crap, I got to find more work. And so it's a lot like that for what we do. We kind of know when we start a season, and usually we're only given like one season guaranteed. Then you start a season and you're like, okay, I've got 8 months I'm on this show, or if you're lucky, maybe 12 or 15. And at some point in time, you start thinking, we're getting closer to the end. I need to start seeing what else is out there. So I think the biggest challenge I faced through the years is realizing that I kind of have to sell myself today so my current employer knows I'm doing a good job, but then also kind of get those feelers out so that months down the road, I'm not surprised by, oh, wow, I've been laid off. Now I need to find another job. But at the same time, it's always worked out. And there's been good times and bad. But here again, it goes back to that passion that we have for what we do. We will find a way to make it work, because we just can't give it up. That's just too much importance in our lives. That's probably been the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine. And looking at it from a voice actor's perspective, it is always a challenge finding that next, gig that you're going to do, the next talking toy, the next whatever. It's a constant audition process with more no's than yeses, unfortunately, and it takes real kind of perseverance to be able to keep going and hold that passion for what you do, because it is a tough industry, across the board in animation, and what you're doing as a voice actor with the auditioning process and how it works, and agents and all of that. It's just a nonstop. You have to be working and marketing yourself all of the time. And I think that's, something in particular for voice actors that are just starting out, is I get a lot of questions from, the newer talent, like, what am I doing wrong? What can I do to be more successful? And I think something that I've really learned in this past year even is just the marketing component of it. You have to be marketing yourself like all the time. Every single day you have to be doing that. And I would imagine for you as well, coming at it from the animator's perspective, that you do sort of have to keep getting your name out there, keep doing great work so that people can go, I need to have her more on my next project because he's fantastic, and why would I not have him, And obviously it's been going that way for you so far, having been in the industry for more than 20 years. So that really says a lot about your work ethic and your talent. So that's really good. So I hope that it continues for you to be successful.
Thank you. Me too.
I'm sure it will. So do you have any advice for voice actors about how to connect with their characters?
Yeah, you and I, here again, this is another great topic you and I have tapped on before. I have encouraged people that do voice work, but they don't consider themselves to necessarily be creative artists, in the sense that they could draw something. But I would say no matter how you do it, get your hands on character artwork, be it comic books or a still off the internet. It doesn't matter how you get it. Or if you are willing and desiring to create your own characters artistically, get a hold of those that inspire you, and then wrestle with voices or a voice that you think would work for that character. Today's world allows us access to, and it's been this way for a few years, obviously, but you can get scripts from different movies and TV shows that are online. Take those, certainly if there's a character you like, let's say there's somebody like Joey from Friends, and say, man, I just love that character. I love how things are written for him, but I have an idea in my head of an animated character or a game character, and I want to do that. Well, you can go online, get a copy of a Friends script, find dialogue that was written for Joey, and then you can literally set it up so that you're like, okay, I've got something that he would say or he has said, and then practice it that way. There's such great access to material, both artistically and written, that allows us, both as artists and voiceover actors, to be able to practice, develop, hone our skills, and then also be able to sell not only ourselves, but the possibility of an idea that we have. And I think, it goes back to, if you have a passion for it, you'll find a way. There's certainly tools out there to make it happen. So yeah, my encouragement to people in the business is find a character or develop a character that you have an artistic version of, and then just sit there and wrestle with, how do I want this character to sound? Or if you have a sound, find a character that matches it, because I think that really helps sell you as a person sometimes when you're in conversation with people that you might eventually be able to get some work from, or just make good, solid contacts.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's really great advice. I think it's definitely a great idea to always have artwork whenever you can to go along with a character that you're developing or that you're trying to develop. So that's a really good idea. Even if you can't draw yourself, like you said, there are so many ways around having to be able to be a good artist. You can get a friend to do it for you, get a student artist to do it for you that won't necessarily charge a lot, make a quick sketch yourself, and as long as you understand what it's supposed to be, that's that's all that matters. I definitely can't draw to save my life, but my kids can draw a little bit better than I can, so I have, some resources there. I can be like, I need a quick sketch of this. Or actually, I'm a French teacher too, so I have a lot of students that are good artists. So sometimes I'll say, hey guys, would you be willing to design a character for me if I gave you the description of what I'm looking for? And they oftentimes do that. So I have a good resource with my high school students to be like, I need this. Can you do this? And then, of course, they're not going to charge me. I just give them a good grade on something, maybe a better grade on some extra credit or something like that, So,
there you go.
Yeah. So we love seeing your drawings on Instagram and social media. What do you think inspires you most in your work?
Well, I will admit, it's easy to say that I'll see other artwork on the internet. Instagram's a great place for it. Occasionally I'll see it on Facebook. Sometimes it's just through the news. We've gotten more accustomed to seeing cartoon characters or animatable characters used in promotions of things other than just children's television shows or children's toys. They've become more mainstream. So artistically, it's great to see a character or even maybe a background that's hand-drawn animatable background or animation background. But I also, which I think taps into what you do, I also find it very interesting when I hear voices, be it in movies or television shows. I don't necessarily have to be paying attention to the visual as much as the subconscious hits a chord when a voice comes on, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I've got such an inspiration, to draw a character. And it's just my version of something that really kind of has sporadically gone off inside my brain. But I love those moments because I find inspiration. You can sit and practice. Today I want to draw a female baseball player, and you draw it and you have fun with it. And that's great. It's good practice, and you develop it and you do different things. But inspiration really kind of turns the dial up on your juices. on your creative juices. And the next thing you know, it's almost like I can't put my pen or pencil down until I get this the way I see it in my head. So
Right.
between visual and voice, I really find inspiration. And I sat there, Val, it's been like 4 years since I started drawing daily and putting stuff up on Facebook and Instagram. And after a while, I was like, well, how am I going to find inspiration every day? But it's amazing because you just see people or hear people, be it at the train when I come into town to go to work, or be it on television or whatever, and you're just inspired. It's just a plethora of stuff that's out there to inspire us to create new characters, new voices, new looks to things. So yeah, that's kind of how I do it. I just kind of look around me, and something always strikes a chord every day.
That's so cool. So what are some projects that you're working on now that you're allowed to talk about? I know you're working on Star versus the Forces of Evil, but I know a lot of things are probably things that you can't talk about I don't know if you guys sign NDAs and all of that, but anything else that you have that you're working on that you're allowed to talk about?
I'll tell you something. I don't think I've told maybe but 2 people, and it's not a big to-do, so I don't want to make it sound like it's this big secret that the government, is going to die once it's released. But it's funny you mentioned about inspiration. Several months ago, I drew a character, which I'm not going to say anything about yet. I will make that dramatic surprise later. After drawing this character 3 or 4 times over the course of a couple of weeks, I thought, I want to do a children's book based on this character. And I thought the artwork was unique and very much more illustrative than animatable, although you could change the design a little bit to make it more of an animation kind of character or animatable. And the storyline just hit me. I know exactly what I want to do. I'll end up obviously self-publishing it because I don't have any illustrative connections. Certainly, I did illustrate a couple of books, but I'm not at that point in my career where it's like, oh, I'll write a book and it'll sell millions and become a New York Times bestseller. That would be nice, but it's the fun of creating that character, that inspiration that I'm looking for. So this summer, my goal is to have by the end of the summer the story actually written, and it won't be that extensive. I would say the book itself might be like 20, 24 pages. Mm-hmm. Hopefully there'll be an illustration for each page. But I think as I develop the story, the character in the pose that I want will kind of go hand in hand. So I literally will kind of illustrate it as I write it, and then I'll clean it up and put it together. So my big secret project is to have this book at least in production and have the story written by the end of the summer. And then, I'll self-publish it. We'll see what happens. But it's driving me nuts.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's so exciting. I can't wait to read it and to see your illustrations. And I'm sure it's going to be a bestseller, no doubt. So that'll be great. Cool.
Well, I'll bring you some artwork when we get together for your convention in November, because I would like to share it with you personally instead of, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to kind of talk to you about it.
Yeah, definitely. That's so exciting. If you need any voice actors to do the audiobook version, who to call, obviously.
I've got my connections. You're right.
You got your connections, yeah. But I do want to tell a quick story before we end our session. I had the opportunity to be a guest speaker yesterday at a DC Voiceover meetup group, which is my first time being a guest speaker at any event as a voice actor, and it was so great. And they were asking me, why should we come to your conference in November when there's all these other things going on that we could go to? And I said, something that's really unique about Mid-Atlantic Voiceover is that we are a smaller conference on purpose for the simple fact that we want to offer that unique hands-on kind of an experience. And I was telling the story about in 2015 when that was a time when I was running the conference. It was getting towards the end, and we had been friends for a while at that point, you and and I was overwhelmed. And you said to me, Val, let's go just sit and talk about, the industry so you can have a break from everyone. And I'll never forget that time sitting down with you and having that one-on-one conversation, and so much advice that you gave me that really meant so much to me. And having an experience like that, to be able to sit down with somebody that I admire so much and that has so much experience in the industry, meant so much to me. And I think that at some of the larger conferences, you would never be able to have an experience like that, like you can at MAVO, because it is so such an intimate experience, with the guest speakers being so approachable and so willing to help every attendee that's there and to give personalized advice. And that meant so much to me. And I really thought that the story was great, you know, that I had that experience. And obviously your friendship means so much to me, has meant so much to me over the years. And I value it so much. So I wanted to share that with everyone, that it was really such a valuable conversation that I took to heart and that I'll never forget. So thank you so much for that. Really
you're
meant
very
a lot
welcome.
to me. Yeah.
You're very welcome.
So do you have any upcoming workshops, trainings, conferences that you're planning to attend, and why?
Well, I think the one solid speaking engagement I have is at the Mid-Atlantic Voiceover Conference this fall, your conference. I always look forward to it. One, because I enjoy talking about what I do, and I love our industry. But secondly, to go back to the point you just made, that's one of the great things about Mid-Atlantic Voiceover, is the fact that I get to meet so many people and actually talk to them about what they're doing and encourage them and understand them on a one-on-one basis outside of our general sessions and breakout sessions. It's so cool to be able to talk to people, and I've developed a ton of friends this way because they know that they can talk to somebody one-on-one or in a small group and get some real information versus no access. And that personal touch that we have at your convention, I just think is, it's unspeakable. I mean, it's just like gold, somebody putting money in your pocket. It is just so good and encouraging. It makes it all worthwhile. It's hard to leave on Sundays when we're done, because I got to fly across country to my family and work that I love. But I've just had a weekend of actually sharing and hearing and caring, and we develop, thoughts and ideas and contacts and friends that are really invaluable. It's a great time. So I always look forward to coming to your convention. It's going to be a blast, and this year's going to be even better.
Thanks so much, Herb. I really appreciate it. And we're so honored to have you coming back this year. So for everyone who has not signed up yet, the website is midatlanticvo.com, and the MAVO 2018 conference is on November 9, 10, and 11 in Herndon, Virginia at the Westin Dulles Hotel. And you will have the opportunity to meet Herb Moore there, as well as a bunch of other guest speakers, including our keynote speaker, Kari Walgren, and many, many more. So we hope to see you there. And thank you so much for joining us today, Herb. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's always my pleasure, Val. Love you to death. Thank you.
Thank you.